Hi, David Ellenstein here, Artistic Director of North Coast Repertory Theater. Thank you for tuning in today to our theater conversations. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. That would help us out a lot. Thank you. Hello, it's my pleasure today to be having a theater conversation with my friend, the beautiful and talented Jessica John, who has appeared at North Coast Repertory Theater many times. And we'll talk about some of the plays that she was in. How are you, Jessica?
I'm doing good. It's nice to see your face, David, from so far away.
Well, how do I look electronically as opposed to in person? Does it take away my imperfections or accentuate?
You look really attractive, and you also look like you are really enjoying life because you have quite a nice backyard there.
Well, I'm a good actor. No, we're doing okay.
You are that too.
It's such a bizarre time, but
yes,
okay.
It is.
So just to start us off, Jessica, how did you end up being an actor? I mean, were you born into a family like that was into acting, or how did you end up in acting, and why did you stay with it? Why do you still do it after, I know you're almost 18 now, and you've been doing it your whole life. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, it's funny because my mother was an artist. She was an incredible artist, but she painted and she drew, and she kind of got me into art through her love of it. Even when she was 50 years old, she went back to college and decided to become an art teacher. And so I was always doing little cards with her to know, so I know all the great artists and everything, which is really lovely. So I did have some art in my background, but my father was Harvard businessman, and he absolutely, I don't think to this day he knows how to say drama. He says drama. So was not into me becoming an actor at all. He really emphasized getting an education and going to school, and not that actors don't do that, but he really didn't want me to go to an art school. He wanted me to become a lawyer, which I actually pursued and got into law school. And when I got out of college and was ready to go into law school, I just thought, there's no way in the world. The one thing that kind of excited me about being a lawyer was the idea that I could stand up in front of a group of people and talk. And then I thought, that's not a reason to become a lawyer. That's a reason to become an actor. So the great thing about my father really kind of pushing me to get some sort of a higher education is I have always been a hard worker. But when I got out of school and I got kind of the first job getting out into the world, I thought, I'm going to do one thing every single day to become an actor. And that was really kind of the thing that I really think helped me, is that hard work of like, okay, well, I didn't get an arts education, but I can do something every day. So every day it was either going to an acting class or reading, an acting book, or studying a monologue, or going to see a show, or watching a great movie and really looking at the actors that I loved and trying to learn from them. So it's definitely kind of a lovely little self-made story as far as where I got my drive and my instinct, and I've never stopped. So.
What was the first play you did where you went, maybe not the first play, but the first play that you did where you went, yeah, I'm really good at this and I'm going to keep doing it?
It was actually, I was in school. I was in my last year in theater, and I was on a dance floor at a dance club of all things. I had studied ballet with the Royal Academy for years and years. My twin sister and I were ballet dancers. So I've always loved dancing, and I was just out on the dance floor, like literally at some sort of a bar. And a woman walked up to me and said, "Are you a dancer?" And I said, "Yeah." So I don't know what she picked up on as far as my dancing, because I was, not ballet dancing, but she said, "I'm doing a play, takes place in a ballet classroom." It was in downtown Santa Barbara. I went to UC Santa Barbara, and she said, "Would you audition for it?" I auditioned for it. It was my last year, and I was like, "Oh, I can't believe I'm doing this," because I had finals and everything. And I would be rehearsing, and then I would be up until like 3 a.m. trying to do both things, learn my lines and work, study for my finals. And I remember I was bawling my eyes out to my roommate and I said, I want to be an actor. And she said, then why don't you be an actor? And honestly, she might as well have said to me, why don't you be a unicorn? Like, nobody had ever said that to me. I just didn't even think it was something that I could ever dream of doing. And so that was kind of that moment where I was like, I love this so much. Why wouldn't I ever consider that? So I think that was kind of the moment.
So I know I had met you before, I believe on several occasions, but the first thing I think I saw you in was A View from the Bridge.
Oh, yes.
That was produced by Renaissance Theater, George Flint, and you played Catherine, and I went, oh, she's really good. She's somebody that we want to get up to North Coast Rep.
Oh,
because
thanks.
I don't know that I had even auditioned you before, but I knew then that, oh, that's somebody we want to have work here. Where was that in your career as far as an actor? Was that fairly early?
That was fairly early, yes. And you know, what's interesting is that before I started working with some of the major players here in town, my girlfriend and I, we were taking an acting class together with DJ Sullivan. There were a lot of great actors in that class. Priscilla Allen was in that class. For anybody who remembers Priscilla Allen, Darren Scott, Amanda Sitton. It was kind of a great group of people. We had all come together and we were having a lot of fun. And my girlfriend and I had gone to see a terrible play. And afterwards we thought, I wonder if we could produce a play. So we started producing our own plays with people like Amanda Sitton and Darren Scott, and just two girls. We didn't know anything about starting a nonprofit theater or anything like that. We just started producing plays. At the time I was working in sales, so I was actually making some money, and I didn't have a house and I didn't have a husband and I didn't have a family. So it was just like throwing all my money into, getting my friends together to work on a play. And then we started thinking, if we want to actually build an audience, we should actually start to go to the real theaters and start to get, people knowing who we are. And Darren and Amanda and all of us kind of started doing that. And so I started auditioning for some of the smaller theaters. I was too probably intimidated at the time to walk into North Coast but I was going into some of the smaller, and there were some plays George Flint at that time with Renaissance Theater was producing. I had done a play, I think, over at Sixth Pen at the time, which turned into, I guess it was Sixth Pen, but it was called something else at the time. I did a little play there. So he asked me to audition for the role of Catherine, and I did it, and it was a wonderful experience. Worked with Susan Deniker, and I got to meet her the first time, and I know she's worked at your theater, and had a great time. Also, he produced that over at the old Cygnet space, which is how Sean Murray got to know me. So it was kind of one of those beautiful things of getting to meet people, and it was also the first San Diego Critic Circle Awards I ever won, which was really a huge surprise, because I was just, it was this thing I had decided I'm going to do one thing every day to be an actor. And I thought, oh my gosh, I could actually start working with all these people that I admire and the companies that I admire. So it was a neat kind of movement into that. Yeah.
You're one of the actors that I think of that can kind of cross the boundaries of doing full out comedy and doing serious drama. And at North Coast Rep, you've done everything from unnecessary farce on the one side and Lend Me a Tenor to Gabriel, which is the World War II melodrama, in a good way, I mean melodrama, and even A Shana Maidel, where you played the Holocaust survivor.
Mary, please call extension 313.
Sorry, I'm at work right now, so they're
okay, well, let's jump there for a second. What's work?
Work is at Helen Woodward Animal Center. I am
the
PR director here. I am the PR director,
wow,
which basically means, somebody told me once that I have the job that every 12-year-old girl wants, which is that I basically get to hold puppies and go on the news constantly. And I'm always coming up with creative ways to get these beautiful orphan animals into the eyes of the public. So even that involves a little bit of acting and creativity. I do a lot of ridiculous things like Comic-Con. I've turned into a Pomicon event that we do here, where we basically dress our little orphan animals up as superheroes and remind people that they can be superheroes by saving lives of orphan pets and all sorts of crazy stuff. So that's my day job. That's my day job.
From that to a Holocaust survivor. So talk about the different satisfaction you get from doing a full out farce or comedy and that kind of audience reaction to doing a heavy drama and affecting people in that way. What's the different satisfactions you get?
Well, I do want to say,
Yeah.
since you brought up A Shana Maidel, that that's actually probably my favorite thing that I've ever done, ever. That was a lovely experience, and I really, you were the director of that show, and I really credit that with being one of my most significant experiences with thinking beyond, because I've never been somebody that wanted to be, I never actually thought about being an actor in the movies, or if for me it's not about being a celebrity. It was always about that beautiful craft of acting. And you know, at the time, and I am grateful for every role I've ever had, but when I was young and when I was in my 20s, I was quite often cast as the ingenue, and there's some beautiful ingenue parts. I mean, I got to play Maggie in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. She's a very complex ingenue, and kind of a mix of a character role and an ingenue. But to do Shana Maidel was something I think nobody really thought that I could do, because I just kind of thought I'll play the, you know, kind of young and pretty girl. And I really wanted to play somebody deeper and with a history and a background that was not my own. And it was such an incredible experience. You introduced us to a beautiful, wonderful woman who was a real Holocaust survivor. You recommended books.
Dr. Edith Eger, who is a dear friend. Yeah.
Unbelievable, one of the most amazing people I've ever met. And one of the things that I thought was so significant about her was how light and how much beauty and how she just loved life. And that was a beautiful lesson. You don't play a Holocaust survivor like this heavy, you know, that you remember that they are so grateful for their life, the things that they've gone through. Books that you gave us to read, that was just such a amazing experience. And I remember that play is so funny because it was, to me, it was such a beautiful play and it had so much hope in it. And so my twin sister came to see it, and she said, "Now, is this a heavy play?" And I said, "Oh, there's so much hope in it. You know, it's beautiful, it's happy, it's wonderful." And at intermission, she had texted me and said, "I hate you. I'm out by the fountain and I'm bawling my eyes out." But that's one of her favorite experiences of seeing me on stage as well, because it really was one of those plays where I could forget who I was and go into that incredible story. So that is quite an experience and quite a gift, and I'm very grateful for it.
Oh, well, you were awesome in it, and I'm glad. You know,
Yeah.
that play has a, you know, great place in my heart as well.
Yeah.
So you've worked at most of the theaters around town at this point,
Yes.
but more than that, you also took that, you know, you talked about you and Amanda sitting and Darren starting that little, you've turned that actually now into a real theater company that is a nonprofit on its own that puts on high quality work called Backyard Renaissance Productions.
Yes.
You want to talk a little bit about that transition and how you juggle all these things in the air at the same time, being an actor, having a full-time job, running a theater company, having a husband. How do you juggle all that?
Well, I don't have kids, and I do have to say that could be part of it, because I don't know how, I mean, that would be very, very challenging to do. But Backyard, the very first company that I had was Backyard Productions, the one that I mentioned with Lauren, because I had done plays in my backyard growing up too. When I was a little tiny kid, I was with my sister, I was charging the kids in the neighborhood a nickel to come and see us do something terrible. And so Backyard Productions was kind of this funny kind of, you know, name that I had for that company, because I felt like it was the same thing. Backyard Renaissance, which is the current company I have, which is a legitimate nonprofit now, comes from that old Backyard name, but it also comes from, you mentioned Renaissance Theater Company and George Flint. And when he got sick and when he was kind of ready to pass on his company and move forward with what was going to be the rest of his life, he mentioned to Fran and I when we got married, if you guys ever wanted to.
Fran is Fran Gerk, your husband.
Fran
Who's
Gerth,
also a
yes.
wonderful actor.
Wonderful actor and,
Yeah.
and producer and director.
Right.
He had mentioned to Fran and I that if we ever wanted to take up the Renaissance Theater Company again, that he would feel that we could do that. So we kind of combined what I had done and what he had done and tried to kind of bring them into one theater company where we tell, he did a lot of really classic, wonderful stories. I did things that were a little bit newer and a little bit edgier. And so now we've done, I think we're going into our 5th season of shows, 5th or 4th. Isn't that crazy?
Listen, I'm going into 18. So
I'm sure you can't count, David. Sure you can't count. But in any case, yes, we try to do, we do about 3 shows a year. We always try to do one really classic piece or something that we want to bring some vibrant new life to. We try to do something magical, and we try to do something a little edgy. So three very different pieces. And it's been a thrill. We're homeless right now, which has been actually, oddly, all things considered, kind of a saving grace right now with the COVID crisis. We're so sensitive to so many of our beautiful theater friends who have theater companies and full employees that you're trying to continue to pay. And so we're so sensitive to that because right now because we're homeless, we're kind of lucky we're not paying rent or utilities or anything right now.
So just to remind the North Coast Rep audience, I mean, I'm thinking off the top of my head, I said A Shana Maidel, and I said Unnecessary Farce, and I said Lend Me a Tenor, and I know there was School for Lies. There was Gabriel.
That's my other favorite.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Like
two
of my very favorite
What was so
shows.
fun about School for Lies? School for Lies was the modern adaptation of the who was the original playwright? The French playwright?
Moliere? Was it
Moliere or was it
I thought it was Moliere.
Was it? It may have been Moliere. I was thinking maybe it was Corneille, but it was Moliere. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Oh gosh, that was so fantastic. Well, I got to be with some great people in that cast, and I played opposite Richard Baird.
Right.
It was so fun because I just think it was one of the funniest comedies I've ever worked on, but it was written in verse,
Right.
which is very unique to get to do those sort of funny barbs and really, and people, think about it with Shakespeare, but being able to bring something kind of modern into that sort of writing. The costumes were fantastic because they mixed modern costumes with these, wonderful, classical costumes and wigs, and David McBean was in it. Phil Johnson was in it.
Right. So many fun people.
Oh gosh,
great
it's
cast.
just wonderful cast of people, wonderful experience. It was also in the heat of summer. So I just remember in these big costumes and wigs and that, back in the dressing room and all of us just sweating, but running out there and making each other laugh. And it was just one of those magical, and we had one day in particular where the lights blew because of it was so hot that the air conditioning was running. And what was so great is it went to those little lights on the floor, the little tiny, I don't know what they're called.
The birdies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we kept going, and the audience loved it, and everybody in the audience kind of leaned into that experience. And it was just one of those magical, there are just some moments in theater that are just different.
You're saying that you were so hot you blew out our electrical system?
Yeah, well, it was me specifically. I did it.
Well, Jessica, this is great. And you're talking about it and you're making me nostalgic for us getting back to work, which we all want to do. And we're just waiting this out. But I'm so glad that you did this today so that North Coast Rep audience gets to know you in a way that they don't. They see you on stage, but they don't know what a charming person you are and how you have a full life off the stage as well. So thanks for doing this, man. I hope to see you really soon.
Yeah, I miss you very much, and please stay safe and well.
You and Fran as well. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Okay.